And before I invite the color guard, just so you know, if you have your agenda before you, that if there's any item on the agenda you'd like to speak to, or if it's not on the agenda but pertaining to our schools like to speak to, there are speaker cards there in the back. Please fill that out and get one up here to Mrs. Anderson, and we'll be sure to call on you. With that, I'm very pleased to present tonight the color guard by the Arlington High School Air Force Junior Reserve Officers Training Corps under the direction of Colonel McPeters and Sergeant Forsey. It's been a long time since the last meeting. Would Jocelyn Pasquale come forward as well? Jocelyn? Jocelyn's going to lead us tonight, and I'll tell you a little bit more about it here in a moment. So, Jocelyn, when you see that California flag dipped and it keeps the American flag up, that's when you start, okay?
Hey, halt, raise that, colors.
Please stand for the flag salute. Hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order, colors. Ready, cut. Start in place. March. Forward. March.
Thank you, Junior Reserve Officers of Arlington High School. Jocelyn. Is it Jocelyn or Jocelyn?
Jocelyn.
Jocelyn, all right. Mr. Pasquale, thank you. You understand? No, I'm supposed to have a write-up on you, and I didn't check with that. It's under the blue paper. All right. It says here, and I don't disagree with it, it's a great pride that Harrison Elementary School has chosen Jocelyn Pasquale to represent our school community and lead the Pledge of Allegiance this evening. Jocelyn began her academic career in 2010 as a kindergarten student in Miss Clark's class, and now 6 years later she is commencing her 6th grade as a student in Miss Gaynor's class. During this time, Jocelyn has had near perfect attendance, congratulations, never missing more than one day of school most years, and even achieved perfect attendance other years. Jocelyn is an avid reader. She's been a member of the elite Million Word Readers Club for both her 4th and 5th grade years. As an English language learner, Jocelyn believes it is her skills in reading that support her designation at the end of her 4th grade year. She is now committed to supporting Eduardo, her 2nd grade brother, in developing his reading skill to become a successful reader. That's very good, young lady. I understand also your parents are here and they're listening to the translation. Is that right?
Yes,
Okay.
that is right.
Technology, speaking of technology, is another area of interest for Jocelyn. She has served as a tech coach to support her classmates, and last year she participated in Harrison's Coding Club, which she looks forward to participating in again this year. As Jocelyn looks forward to her future, she plans to work hard and earn good grades throughout middle school and high school to ensure she secures a scholarship for college. This will allow her to attain one of her life goals of being the first person in her family to graduate from college. After college, Jocelyn is interested in becoming a medical doctor or even president of the school board of the United States of America. Same thing. And Harrison Elementary School is extremely proud, as we are, of Jocelyn Pasquale. We'd like to present this to you, Jocelyn. If you just hang on one second. don't you go ahead and introduce your parents to us and tell us about them.
I shall introduce you to my parents. Miguel Pascual is my dad. My brother is in second grade, Eduardo Pascual. And my mom is Alejandra Pascual. My brother is in second grade, and that his name is Eduardo Pascual.
Thank you so much for being with us tonight. We're very proud to have you. Keep up the good work of helping others at Harrison. That's very important. And we do so much appreciate you being here. You can stay and enjoy this if you want to see what it's like to be a school board president, or you can go if you and your family, as long as you like to stay. But I know you have work to do with school starting and all, so if you have to get home, oh, you do? What kind of homework do you have to do?
Math homework.
Math homework? What?
I like math.
You like math? Well, you're a smart little girl. We just left a friend's celebration of a friend who was a math teacher and made a lot of difference for young ladies. She'd be very glad to hear that. All right. In fact, here, this is from Dr. Klute for you. She was a math teacher. All right. Thank you, young lady. Makes all the difference, doesn't it? Well, we have a very special evening today. I don't know how old is our school district? It's old, yes. And we've been around a long time. And tonight we're adding to our governance team. And I'm going to ask, this is on the initiative of our newest board member, Dr. Angela Farouk, with all the board support. I'm going to ask for our Chief Academic Officer, Lynn Carmenday, to tell us about this and introduce us to some neat young people.
Good evening, Board President Hunt, Dr. Hanson, esteemed board members. Tonight, I have the privilege to introduce a topic that was brought to us last year from Dr. Angelo Farouk when he asked staff to look into the potential of having a student board member share the dais with our board. And so we did that work. We looked at other districts, and we decided to proceed with that recommendation through an application process, which Trustee Patricia Locke-Dawson assisted with. And then from there, we had students apply, and we did select 3 students to join our board. Those 3 students are here tonight to take an oath of office. I wanted to give a little bit more background. They were provided a student orientation that was conducted by Dr. Farouk and Trustee Alavi, who also interviewed the students. Tonight, if I can have these 3 students come forward for the oath of office, and Board President Hunt will join, and we will proceed. From Riverside STEM Academy, we have Alex Herrera, and he's going to be serving the first term. From Abraham Lincoln High School, we have Nicole Jacobson, and she'll be serving our second term. And finally, from North High School, we have Jerry Schwun, who will be serving our third term. I just want to let you know that part of the policy developed is that these students will have preferential voting. Prior to the board taking the vote, they will be casting a vote as well. They will have the opportunity to have comments, and they will not participate in closed session, and I just wanted everyone to know that. So, you ready? Okay.
Nice to meet you. You're welcome. Looking forward to working with you. Okay, if you would all raise your right hand and repeat after me. Say I. Fill in your name, okay? I,
Eric Sir,
do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution
support the Constitution
of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California.
Of the United States and the Constitution of California.
Here we go, try this. Against all enemies,
Against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
I will bear true faith and allegiance
I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States,
to the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
without any
reservation or purpose of evasion,
and I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
and I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
and
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Welcome to the board. Alex, you want to say anything? Or, come on up here. I'm going to take Alex to his spot. Oh, I think we got your picture. So you got pictures with everyone? All right. How about the rest of the board would come down? I was sharing earlier, Mrs. Allaby and I were talking, that when I first came on the board, Mrs. Allaby and I, it took us 2 years to convince the other board members to allow us to have a student come say the Pledge of Allegiance at AHU. This is not your father's school. This is my school board. It's one that Dr. Farouk brought this our answer. Dr. Farouk wants to be here.
Thank you. Congratulations, everybody. Great. Can I shake your hand?
Well, Mr. Herrera, if there's ever a time you get to speak freely, it's right now. So would you like to say, coming onto the board?
I just want to give my thanks to the school board for giving me the opportunity to represent not only my school but my entire district, and I hope to do my best and to make my district proud.
And Alex, you are in what year at STEM?
I'm in my senior year.
Okay, and planning on doing what from there?
I hope to go to college, not sure which one yet, but I hope to be an aerospace engineer and work for NASA someday. If not an aerospace engineer, I'd want to be a computer scientist.
Very good, very good. Well, welcome to the board. I'll be sure they've taught you how to call on you, and if you have a comment, I will ask you to have the first vote, which will be a standalone vote, and then we'll go from there every time. So let's move on with our agenda. And thank you, Mrs. Allaby and Dr. Farouk, or Dr. Allaby, for taking on the chore of not only selecting these young people, but being their mentors, which I'm sure will continue during their time up here. Our next item on the agenda is our District Superintendent's report. Dr. Hanson.
Thank you, President Hunt, and I too would like to extend a hearty welcome and a congratulations to our 3 board student representatives, Alex, Nicole, and Jerry. I had a chance to meet all of them right prior to the meeting, and they're just delightful young people and some of the very best that we have in RESD. And so congratulations and welcome your official term, Alex. It's been a great start to the 2016 school year. We've welcomed, as you know, 42,000 students approximately at 48 of our schools throughout the community, and I'd like to personally thank the amazing teachers, the principals, our maintenance and operations staff, classified staff, confidential staff, everyone to put together one of the best openings yet, filled with hope, engagement, and well-being for all of our students and employees. Most of all, I'd like to thank the Board of Trustees for your support as we begin the new school year, for your dedication, your tireless dedication that you have towards students and staff. As you know, a couple of biggie things happened this year. On August the 14th or the 22nd, we had the new employee welcome at Central Middle School. And this year, we had the opportunity to welcome over 350 new employees to our school district, joining the amazing team. And the theme that particular day was, what's your superpower? And HR just did an outstanding job as we had a chance to learn about some of our colleagues' superpowers and then mingle with all of the staff members that were there. And then last but certainly not least, you know that on August the 24th, we had our big convocation for the district where we had all 4,000 employees split pretty evenly between King High School and Ramona High School. And there were over 145 workshops, which all employees had a chance to participate in. We had a keynote speaker from Gallup, Tim Hodges, and whatnot. And Every now and again, people send positive emails to the superintendent. They're not always concerns. And there's an email that I just received recently from one of our teachers at King High School. Many of you may know Coach John Corona, and I just want to share just a little bit about his email. He says, "Dear Dr. Hansen, I've been meaning to write for some time to let you know how much I enjoyed our district's Professional Development Day on August the 24th. I have to admit that even after all of my time in this district, I still get pumped up for a new year, and our new annual district get-together is great for building team morale and for helping us meet the goals we meet in every classroom. As I am reaching the end of my career, I have never felt better about our district, our commitment to people within it, and our commitment to the vision that we are collectively working towards." And so, board members, truly thank you for setting the vision, setting the bar high, and making the events like we have on August PD, that convocation or the new employee recognition event possible. Truly grateful for that leadership. A couple other things I'd like to share, but before I wrap up, I'd like to invite Mr. Tim Walker. Last board meeting, District of Choice was brought up. You know that we are a District of Choice, and we shared with you that it got stalled in the committee, that legislation. And so Tim, although he's formally going to give you an update at our October board meeting, I'd like to have him give you what we know this evening regarding the District of Choice as it affects our schools. Tim.
Mr. President, Superintendent, members of the board, I wanted to give you a quick update on District of Choice. As you may or may not know through some communications, we've had District of Choice, which we have declared ourselves as for the last 5 years, will sunset at the end of this current school year, 2016-17. There was much action in the legislature of California to bring forth a Senate bill first by Bob Huff, 1742, that would have extended it for an additional 5 years, allowing current districts who have declared themselves districts of choice, as well as any others who followed the Ed Code to declare themselves as districts of choice, to continue to allow students to attend their district after taking action to identify the number of spaces available and to extend it for each year through a resolution. That bill, I actually went up at the request of the superintendent to Sacramento, spoke before the Education Committee on the date that they were going to vote on the bill, and they passed it through the Education Committee on to the Appropriations Committee, at which time the bill stalled and never came out of the Appropriations Committee. Subsequent to that, 2 bills were then brought forth, one by a legislator in Los Angeles, Irwin, and after that, O'Donnell. Both of them requested that the legislature take action to grandfather in all of the students who are currently in districts through the District of Choice program. That bill actually would be detrimental to districts of choice because it would have basically said all of those kids are protected, and therefore if the District of Choice went away, it would not be a problem for any other districts because those students have been grandfathered in. Both of those bills stalled, and before the legislature broke for the session that they're currently in, they took no vote on it. So currently, there's a commitment by the Assembly to bring forth a bill after the legislature takes their break and to bring forth a new request for a District of Choice to be renewed. We'll see who picks that up. Senator Bob Huff has met his term limit, so it will not be him. We're keeping in close communication with Sacramento and our analysts up there, and we will take actions to move forward to support continuing to have the opportunity to be a District of Choice. I will be bringing forward for you, as is currently required under Ed Code, in October, like I have done every year, a request to declare ourselves as a District of Choice in preparation for next year, and identifying the number of slots that we will have available for students to come into our district should the program continue after the end of this current school year.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Something else, the board, I want you to be aware of, because it was brought up last time regarding, there's a lot, of course, on the ballot coming up, in November, but you recall last board meeting we talked briefly about Proposition 58, which deals specifically with our English learners. Certainly that ties into 227, Prop 227 that passed in the mid-90s. This morning in Cabinet, staff gave an update on that, what it means for Riverside, questions that we have, other districts around who have supported that proposition. And at our next board meeting on September the 19th, we'll give a full report to the Board of Trustees with the recommendation. Now, that leads to me to our next board meeting, September 19th, talking to President Hunt and myself.
Just wanted to let you know. Additionally, I wanted to give you a little bit of an update on the Harmony Project. We had a presentation at our last board meeting, and it was recommended that we continue to look into it and do take some kind of action towards a partnership with them. And so we are actually partnering with them to bring a pilot program at 2 of our elementary schools, Patricia Beatty Elementary School and Bryant Elementary School. I think that makes sense for both. And they're going to be integrating music into instruction for TK and kindergarten. And then also an after-school program in collaboration with the Harmony Project will happen for 4th through 6th grade at both of those 2 sites. So that's pretty exciting. And we are also going to be working with Riverside Arts Academy to schedule assemblies on the East Side schools to integrate Harmony Project and offer an after-school program at the Cesar Chavez Center beginning in October. Wanted to give you an update on that. Additionally, we are having a United College Action Network, the Black College Expo. We're going to be bringing in 30 to 40 historical colleges and university representatives to Martin Luther King High School on September 19th from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. And that is going to be a college fair where students can actually be interviewed and obtain access or admissions right on the spot, as well as scholarships. Very exciting. And finally, I wanted to add a little bit more to the arts, to the VAPA update, or the Visual and Performing Arts, and that is we're still partnering with the Arts to Go, and now all 3rd through 6th graders will receive arts this year. Very exciting. And that we, through the LCAP funds, are purchasing 200 additional instruments. One last update on Girls Who Code. We are moving forward with that partnership, and I wanted to just remind the board that it's in 2 different delivery styles. One is the summer program, which we had some students participating in, the summer immersion, and then the after school is the other opportunity through clubs, and we're moving forward with our action plan on that as well. Thank you.
Chief Academic Officer, would you take a question from Trustee Alavi, please?
Sure. Thank you. The college fair that you're going to have at Martin Luther King, will that be open to all of our high schools? And how are you going to get all of our high schools to have that information?
It is going to be open to all of our students. And go ahead. And yes, we are offering transportation, but I'm going to let.
Thank you.
Yes, Mrs. Alavi, we are going to be opening that up for all of our high schools, and we are going to be providing transportation for students to be able to get there. And because King High School is going to be hosting that school, we're going to open it up for those students first, and this will be, we're going to try to get as a diverse group of students to attend this opportunity for the first time.
Okay, and then to finish up,
Thank you.
Mrs. Carmody, Mr. Garcia. And to finish up, on August the 22nd, in our media team, I believe I have some slides back there. If you could, there you go. On December the 22nd, we had the A-team from Riverside, Dr. Farouk, Dr. Rowe, and Dr. Kaisha Holmes, as part of their collaboration with the California Restorative School Initiative and their professional work throughout our region regarding equity and education, represented RUSD at the White House in a full day of meetings. And the purpose of the meeting was to discuss and plan our work to disrupt the school-to-prison pipeline through restorative justice practices. And as they were there, and I was following them on social media, or they're sending texts back and forth, I just was so excited for them, for us, and the great work that they've done, and I've since seen some videos that other folks have taken back there on their cell phones, nothing professional, but I just was very, very proud of the three of them. And so I want to have Dr. Holmes, I see you here. Dr. Rowe, would you please stand up? And of course, Dr. Farouk, thank you very much for representing us. I'd like to actually give Dr. Farouk some time right now to share your thoughts and the things that you had a chance to participate in as a trustee back there represent RUSD, and take whatever time you need right now, Angelo, if you would.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Hansen. So, it was obviously an honor for all of us to be there representing RUSD in our community. I particularly want to thank President Hunt for encouraging us. He was texting us on the day of our meetings, giving us some words of support. So we really...
I didn't get the cufflinks I wanted.
we really did appreciate that, though. And so for me personally, I just really want to commend Dr. Holmes and Dr. Rowe. I'm really proud to represent and join that meeting with both of you. You guys did an exemplary job for our community and for our district. So thank you guys for that. So just to give you a little bit of quick context, so I actually serve on the executive committee for the Restorative Justice Coalition, and that meeting actually kind of launched that statewide coalition to go national. And we were joined by a lot of national organizations. The National Education Association was there, so the teachers were represented. The NAACP from Washington, D.C., the Legal Defense Fund, as well as the Children's Defense Fund and a variety of other organizations. There were a couple of other school districts represented as well. So we had a meeting with President Obama's senior officials and advisors. The focus was really to how to frame a national conversation on this issue. There's a variety of different factors that are influencing the consciousness about what restorative justice means and what it looks like in districts. There's districts that are being forced to do this for compliance measures. There's districts that are taking initiatives. What Dr. Rowe is doing at Poly with Harvard and with Empathy, those I think are things that are even beyond what's currently being discussed on restorative justice nationally. So I think in some regards we're doing some very visionary things. But in other regards, there's a lot of areas where us as a district, I think there's opportunities for us to take initiative. So, I mean, as early as today, actually, one of our agenda items is about reforming our discipline code. And Dr. McGuire has been doing a phenomenal job and doing research on how we can have a lot of best practices here at RUSD. He's working with Public Counsel, which was one of the stakeholders in our White House meeting. And so we, and I mentioned this to Dr. Rowe and Dr. Holmes. For us, this meeting, it's an honor. It elevates the conversation. It brings some gravity and some powerful networks for us to work with. But it's a means to an end. And so for us, what really comes out of this meeting in terms of what kinds of culture that we can foster here at RUSD that can disrupt that school-to-prison pipeline, what can give more students opportunities, that's what really we're going to be proud of at the end of the day, what comes out of this. And but we're fortunate that we're in a position where we can help shape a national dialogue on this. And so this is something that is going to go beyond that one meeting. A couple of quick potential takeaways besides the discipline policy. We're looking at doing a potential workforce training program with Department of Labor. The White House was gave us a lot of good feedback on that, and I'm going to be discussing that with the State Workforce Development Department. The idea is to take people who have been offenders, train them to actually be the ones mediating and helping reconcile these opportunities in the school districts. They know more than anyone else the language and how to resonate. So I think that could potentially be a very transformative opportunity. The Department of Ed, they actually are looking to our coalition to actually develop the entire clearinghouse of resource nationally on restorative justice. So that's another outcome that I think we could be proud of. The California Endowment is in discussions regarding potential funding opportunities, and we're going to obviously be in touch with that. The Camisa Foundation really hit it off with Dr. Rowe being an ambassador for Poly. So this is an opportunity for us to be the first school district outside of San Diego to get funded from this foundation to advance restorative justice. And I think potentially as early as next year, we could see some outcomes from that. And there's going to be other things too that will be developing. I don't want to speak to it because it's a little premature, but Dr. Holmes, I don't know if you want to add anything, or Dr. Rowe, but other than that, I just wanted to share those updates with you, and thank you guys again for giving me the opportunity to serve.
Welcome, Dr. Holmes.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Farouk. So one of my roles at the White House was to speak a bit about what we're doing here in RUSD proactively. And so much of the initial understanding of what we have as restorative justice is after something has occurred. How do we become reconciled? So my contribution was, as a district, we're taking steps to identify the strengths of both students and staff in a way to help build character, to build skills, to negotiate circumstances prior to a conflict. And I also contributed to the conversation in a way to kind of admonish them against trying to legislate certain things. And the example I used is, we have the CLAD certification or authorization that all teachers are required to have in education, but we haven't seen a significant impact on that, on how it's actually impacting English language learners. And so rather than move towards initiatives from a legislative perspective that sometimes causes coercion, we want to begin to do the organic work of developing teachers and being gracious and engaging in conversations and dialogues prior to circumstances so that we can grow and support our teachers as well as our students in our community.
Thank you, Dr. Holmes.
Two both very articulate ways of explaining the experience. It was just cool to go to the White House. I felt like I was there to accompany Dr. Farouk and Dr. Holmes as well, and of course all the wonderful text messages and social media posts, and you giving us the coach's speech. Appreciate that. But really, for me, it's not just about ending the school to prison pipeline. It's also about having a conversation about our students who are under immense pressure to perform in our wonderful standards-based, standardized testing world. And our kids dealing with mental illness in ways they never have had to before, the pressures that they're under, the pressures that our teachers are under. It wasn't a very friendly exchange with me and the Deputy Assistant to the President. I felt like I wanted to be honest and make sure that we made the most of that visit, but clearly there's much more that we can do as a country, and this progressive, forward-thinking board. I've had an opportunity to interact with all of you personally and know the kind of legacy that you want to leave and know the difference that you want to make with kids. And I think our ethical and moral approach that we take here in RUSD, it's more than test scores, it's about kids. And that is not the norm. And when you advocate for kids and not necessarily what's convenient for adults, you are a threat. We are a threat to our own profession. But I think it's the most worthy fight we could ever be in, and I'm determined to be on the right side of history on this one. So I thank you for the opportunity to represent RUSD. I had a blast. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rowe, Dr. Holmes.
One last thing.
No, your floor.
If you guys haven't checked it out, Dr. Rowe's comments that he made, very inspirational, was actually captured on video. So make sure you guys check that out.
How do we find that?
Have you posted it at all on publicly besides your Facebook? Or? You should do it.
We like you too. Go ahead and post it.
Thank you, President Hunt, members of the board, and for those that participated in my report this evening. That does conclude my report.
Thank you, Dr. Hanson, and thank all three of you for greatly representing this district. And it's you're three of the finest we could have sent. We do have one public comment. It's a Pat Sinclair, and Ms. Sinclair would like to talk about Fine Arts D. Board Member Herrera, let me just explain that when someone speaks from the public, we under California state law, because it's not agendized, she's going to be speaking about fine arts, for instance, we can't really respond other than say thank you. And that's, you can ask a clarifying question if you had to, but just so you know, and I just wanted to let you have that. A lot of people think we're being really rude and all that, but it's against the law. So with that introduction, Ms. Sinclair, you want to talk about fine arts here at RUSD.
Good evening. I am a product of Riverside Unified School District. I graduated in 1960. My children are graduates of Riverside Unified School District, both of my daughters. They are both teachers for Riverside Unified. One of my granddaughters is a teacher for Riverside Unified, as is her husband. We love and believe in Riverside Unified School District, and we always have. Since I came to California in the early 1950s and became part of Riverside Unified, I love it. You are the best, the most hardworking, the most dedicated to children doing well and achieving. I'm a product of that. I was a little farm girl from Ohio. Never crossed my mind that I'd go to college. One of your principals took me aside and said, "You need to go to college." And he nursed me through the entrance exams, and I became a teacher. And everything about Riverside Unified, through my children, my grandchildren, and in 4 more years, my great-granddaughter, has been a wonderful experience. This summer, as I am retired, I taught for Riverside Unified for 30 years. After I retired, I became a volunteer. First, I started reading in first-grade classrooms because I felt that was important. Then I started doing art programs throughout the elementary school because I felt that was important. And now I'm getting involved in all of the things that my grandchildren are involved in. I have twin grandsons that have just started going to King, and I have one grandson that is a sophomore at Poly. When I went to the parent night at King's band, this was an experience I'd never had in my life. And he had a program, Dr. Gray. I'd never met him before. He had a program for 2 hours. I have never seen anything like it in my life. I have been a teacher. I have seen lots, hundreds of presentations. His presentation was phenomenal. We're sitting in front of his 191 band members, who are all in their perfectly clean white sneakers because they've been told it's disrespectful to not be perfectly clean. Their black slacks and their school shirts. And they sat in front of us for 2 hours, and I didn't see anybody visiting, goofing off. They were there for a purpose. They played for us, and they were phenomenal. Of course, they'd been practicing all summer. When I took my grandson to practice one morning, he said, "Now, Grandma, I have to be there at 7:45. And I said, "Well, it's 8 o'clock. And he said, "No, if you're there at 8 o'clock, you're late. You are to get there at 7:45, have your things aside, be on the field, and be ready to go." What these students are learning is phenomenal. I listened to him for 2 hours. I was just amazed at his level of expectation and at the pride he has in his band. It was amazing. He convinced me they are the best in the state. No question about it. He made it very clear that they need volunteers, they need parents, they need grandparents, they need people down there helping them. What I saw was a teacher who cared so much about his program and what he was doing. I've heard he's tough. I don't have a problem with that. I was tough too. He had high expectations, and he has 191 kids whose life is going to be affected by the 4 years that they have with him. They know to be on time. They know to be prepared. They know what's expected of them. And will they carry those things over into reading, writing, and arithmetic? You better believe it. The fine arts are a very important part of what we're doing. Very important. I used to do a play at 6th grade that some of you may know better than others. Anything we can do to bring out everything in a child, because maybe you can't get to him through math, but you might get through him through counting off for band. There's always another way. There is no such thing as a child that can't be taught. There is no such thing. And you do such an excellent job. I sat here and listened already this evening to the things that you're looking at and the things that you're doing. And it just makes me so proud to be part of it. I am at this stage of life where I am a volunteer, and I love being a volunteer. So thank you very much for all that you do for us. I appreciate it so much. Thank you for Dr. Gray. I think what he's doing is amazing. I'm very impressed. Anybody that can get 191 high school kids to sit there and not talk is amazing. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Sinclair. Thank you very much. And next we have from the Black Voice Foundation our good friend Hardy Brown to talk about Footsteps to Freedom recently. Mr. Brown.
Mr. Superintendent, Board President, Board, thank you so much for having me here today. My name is Hardy Brown. I'm the Executive Director of the Black Voice Foundation. And I love the fact that she said she was from a small town in Ohio, because I know everybody in this room who went on the tour this year wanted to say OH. So we have a number of people who went on the tour with us this year, and I'd like them to real quick just stand, everybody who went on the tour in our different groups. And as you can see, it's a great representation from parents, staff, and from the teachers, from administration, and we're really proud. People ask me, well, you've gone on it now 5 or 6 times. Do you get bored going on it? And I've come to realize that I don't get bored. What I do is I get excited by watching it through the eyes of people who've gone through it. And so today I wanted to come by and say thank you so much for supporting your team here at Riverside as they went on this historic journey. They got a chance to see some things that other districts and even my mom, who was the organizer of this, had never seen. This year we went to Harriet Tubman's gravesite and her home, and we got a chance to see some places and some things that people will never be able to see again. One in particular, one of our docents, Jerry Gore, who had been with us since the beginning, he passed away right after he met Dr. Hanson, and he had been with us for 20 years telling the history of Maysville, Kentucky, where slaves had escaped to their freedom. And so these freedom seekers are now a part of your district that are going to come in and teach this history at an amazing level, and their energy and their excitement is going to continue to grow. So we're proud to partner with you. I did bring with me a little gift for the superintendent, for you all to have. This is just a little picture from some of the pictures. We have probably hundreds of pictures, but some of the pictures from the particular the tours. So your group was split between 2 different tours, and so we have some pictures from there. We also have a couple of pictures from this year, because Dr. Holmes and I had working together this year to go do an assembly called "We're More Alike Than Different." And this particular assembly, we were able to work with students at, I believe it was 20 or so elementary schools this year, and we brought out African artifacts, and we taught them that they're more alike than different. And so these are some of the drawings from the students and some of the pictures. So also wanted to bring this. And then a couple of pictures. One in Buxton, this picture right here is Dr. Hanson putting his nose up on the blackboard. And as he puts his nose up on the blackboard, he can talk to you a little bit about how impactful this particular school that was founded by a white minister who wanted to test a model that if he brought freed people who could make it here from the United States to Canada, if they could get there and they were brought on equal footing, and everything was the playing field was equal, that they would be successful. And to this day, that school is successful. I'd like to end on this particular thing. You talked about the college fair that's coming up, and I want to give you just a personal thing. My daughter, who is just recently graduated high school from San Bernardino, she went to this college fair last year. She was accepted to 9 universities. She is right now at Spelman College in Atlanta, Georgia, on a full ride scholarship from this particular college fair. So the power of what this is going to do for your students here in Riverside, it's going to change their lives. She's already working on the newspaper staff.
Oh, how does that happen?
Right, how does that happen? But she's already working on the newspaper staff and working with career services on campus. And because of her time in the schools in San Bernardino at Middle College High School, she actually entered as a junior. So she walks into this amazing experience that was brought right here to her schools. and now is going to turn this into a whirlwind of knowledge, and she's going to grow from it. So I really applaud you on all the great work that you're doing, and I thank everybody for coming out with us on this particular tour this year, and we look forward to continuing to work with you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Hardy, how's your dad doing?
He's doing great.
Okay, tell him hi for us. All right. That concludes public comment. We now, what we do here is maybe a governance team, but it's a collaboration with many groups, our teachers, our classified, and the folks that are school managers. And here to represent them is Victor Cineros. Victor is the president of the Riverside Association of School Managers. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Good evening, Board President Mr. Hunt, Superintendent Dr. Hanson, members of the board. Welcome, Alex, to the board. Today, the RASM Executive Board would like to take the time to highlight the story of Lizette Nance, our RUSD student who is the recipient of the ACSA Region 19 Every Student Succeeding Award that we told you about back in May. This video is about 4 minutes, so bear with us, but the story is very powerful.
She has seen too much for a girl her age. Her life has been one of hardships, of abuse, of neglect.
Lizette has come from the depths of where people should have given up.
Through it all, Lizette Nance never wavered. She grew up fast, if only because she had to, especially after the death of her mother.
When I was 2, my mother passed away, and my dad ran away with me to LA. For the longest time, like, he was all I got. He's all I got. That's my mindset, like, he's my dad, like, I love him.
But that's only part of the story. Lizette's mother, Esperanza Quintana, was murdered in Memphis, Tennessee, and her father, Edgar Quintana Ramos, was a suspect. Due to insufficient evidence, he was never charged with the crime, but in 2007, tragedy struck again when Lizette found her 1-year-old stepbrother dead in her father's apartment. Court records reveal Quintana Ramos pled guilty to willful neglect of a child resulting in injury, and he was deported to Mexico.
I would spend a lot of time at court, like, just waiting in the waiting room, just like seeing what would happen, and like I didn't know what was going on. Like, I would just see my dad like across the way and just cry because like I didn't know what was going on. Like, I knew it was bad, but like I didn't know what was going on.
Lizette quickly found herself in the foster care system, moving from house to house, 7 in all.
I just try to be positive, like maybe this will be a good home, and if it's not, then well, there's another home. So it was just like, just go with the flow.
But when she was 10 years old, Lizette met the woman she would soon call Mom, Madonna Nance.
I introduced myself to her. She was the cutest little kid. And she said, I'm a really good girl. I can clean. I keep my room clean. I cleaned chicken coops and cow things. And I said, honey, I want you to be a kid. I don't want you to clean my house. I don't want you to do my dishes. You come and you be a kid.
Yeah, we just glued the edges even more.
The kid is now an outgoing young woman at Ramona High in Riverside. She's involved in student government, excels at both cheerleading and swimming. And oh yeah, she's always smiling.
She's just the nicest, sweetest human being on the planet. I just liked her, and just right off the bat. She's just one of those kids that you just gravitate toward and that you just wish all the other kids were just like that.
I try to be happy all the time. I just try to stay positive. That's the biggest component. I just try to see the good in everything. Even if I'm having a bad day, like, there's something good that has to happen.
But perhaps that's the beauty of Lizette Nance, that despite everything, she's still here, determined to never let her past define the woman she wants to be.
being a counselor, you deal with a lot of tough times. Whenever I have a tough day, I always remind myself that there was one student, her name is Lizette.
I don't know what allows a human being to withstand that type of trauma and come out as though she hasn't had any trauma. I don't know what makes her who she is. I don't know. That's just who she is. That's who that person is.
You define who you are, and you could change your future. It's just, if you keep that goal there, you could do it. It doesn't matter where you came from, doesn't matter like where you went, you could still get through it.
Lizette will be representing Ramona High School, Riverside Unified School District as well at the AXA Leadership Conference in San Diego this November. If you're available, come on by. It's the Every Student Succeeding Lunch on November 10th. We look forward to seeing many of you there and another great year. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you, Victor.
Mr. Cisneros, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am, please.
Where is she going to school now?
Lizette is in Bennington College in Vermont.
Very good.
And
Thank
she'll
you.
be, they'll be flying her out to San Diego on behalf of Region 19 for AXA.
Very good.
Great work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great work. Ms. Pasquale, Jocelyn, hi. I've got a bunch of teachers in this room and a couple of moms sitting down here, all worried that you're not going to have time to do your homework. And so you're welcome to stay, sweetheart, but I wanted you to know, if you, I know your little brother's kind of nodding off there, so, because our speeches have not been very riveted, I know. But we're so glad you were here tonight and with us, and keep up the great work at Harrison and helping others. That's the thing. And we're going to see you off to Bennington, one of these colleges one day. Thank you for coming, sir. Thank you. I lost mine. Okay. We will now move to the consent agenda. If there's any items from any board member would like to pull from the agenda, please let me know. Okay, hearing none, the items that are listed on the consent are considered routine and can be enacted, and they follow under California law certain monetary limits and all, and can be acted under one motion. Do I have a motion to approve?
So move.
Thank you, Dr.
Second.
Fruit. Is there a second?
Second.
Mrs. Allaby. All right. I'll ask Mr. Herrera to vote first. Okay, and the rest of us will vote. There we go. Mrs. Allaby?
Thank you.
There we go. And that carries. Thank you very much. Let me move on to my agenda. Be right with you. All right, next item is G1. The Board of Education will hear a report on the Community Resource and Engagement Plan for 2016-17. This will be from Assistant Superintendent Antonio Garcia.
Good evening, President Hunt, Dr. Hanson, and members of the board. I'd like to ask Dr. Kaisha Holmes, who's our Assistant Director for Target Support and Engagement, to present to you this evening on the Family Resource Center Community Resource and Engagement Plan for 2016-17. This is a follow-up on a previous report to the board.
Dr. Holmes?
I'm waiting for my presentation. Good evening, Mr. President, Dr. Hanson, members of the board. In just a few seconds, they'll get the presentation up and we'll get started. Okay, so as Mr. Garcia prefaced, the purpose of this presentation is to follow up a previous board meeting and to provide the board an update with regard to where we are now, what we've learned about the models that we've researched, 3 models, and to present a recommendation to the board on where we'd like to be. It's on. Okay, here we go. Okay, and so over the summer, we convened a family engagement design team, and we studied the California Department of Education's framework to understand and to know how to guide the work we want to do to improve our engagement of families. And we also visited 9 different family resource centers in other districts to understand what they were doing, and then we reflected on what we actually have going on here in our USD. And so what we learned from what we observed and evaluated in other districts is, by far and large, there were 3 different models. There was a community-based model where there was a centralized location for Family Resource Center, and the families had to go to the Family Resource Center to receive support, and they served all the schools in the district. In the site-based model, which we saw in 2 different districts, one in Santa Ana Unified and another in Vallejo Unified, we learned 2 different things. In Santa Ana, we learned that although all of the schools in the district, and Mrs. Alavi accompanied us on that visit, although all the schools had a site-based model, there was little evidence of continuity or structure or quality of engagement of families throughout the district. And one of the things we also learned is that it took them approximately 10 years to grow to fully support every school within the district. What we learned from visiting Vallejo, alongside what we learned from the CDE framework, was that the family resource structure that they had in place that was site-based was structured, and it had significant impact on student learning and student growth. And it was a cluster model where they had a centralized family resource location that helped to support the people on the school sites that were bringing support to the schools for parents to receive that support at the school sites where their students attended school. And then we learned about a site-based model, which was located at a central district office where they had 2 different departments, one that maintained and developed partnerships to be able to serve the community and parents, and the other department had to do with the parent education piece and developing and structuring workshops for parents to grow in leadership and in support of their students. And so here is where we are. I think currently we exist as a community-based model, and we currently are staffed with 2 family engagement and resource specialists, a supervisor, a coordinator, and a secretary. Last year's LCAP called for the expansion of 2 satellite centers, which were opened in January of 2016. Prior to, and I want to clarify something here. It says Bobby Bond Center, and you guys may have heard some talk about Cheers. The Bobby Bond Center has 3 different buildings. They have the Cesar Chavez building, they have the Bobby Bond Sports Complex, and what used to be a preschool, they now call CHEER, which stands for Children, Health, Education, Enrichment, and Resources, and the city actually named that, but that's where our family resource and support is housed on that complex. And so this is where we exist in the community. And so here is the distribution of the support that we've provided to families. So we have 3 different categories of engaging parents to support learning. We have one, the Educational Summit that we host annually for parents. We have our district-led workshops, and then we also have our Parent Engagement Academies, which include PELI, the Parent Educational Leadership Initiative, PK, the Parent Initiative for Quality Education, and then we have our School Smart and those kinds of things that we provide for families. And so of the 7,300 some odd parents that we served since the inception of the Family Resource Center, we've had approximately 4,300 of them actually go through these academies and go through these workshops. And we've graduated almost 1,000 parents from our workshops where they've actually earned certificates or diplomas from these actual academies that they've attended. And then you can see the distribution on the other side where our work has gone towards referring parents for services that help to support the needs of their families. And so after consulting the CDE framework and reflecting on what we've learned from other districts, we saw opportunities to modify our work to better serve our communities and saw a need to revise our mission and vision based on what we learned. In particular, we wanted to bring a focus on connecting the work that we're doing with families to increasing and having a profound impact on student learning. And that is primarily what you'll see reflected here in that modification. And so where we want to be is in a cluster site-based model. And in order for us to move forward with that, we would need to hire 2 additional specialists and a supervisor that can all be provided for in the $220,000 allocation for the 2016 school year as a planned expenditure. Yes.
What does what's the specialist, what do they do?
The specialists actually lead the workshops for families. They organize, they provide the workshops, but they also help families with the referrals for the community services and the partnerships that we have to help them in those kinds of ways.
And are we starting to expand on partnerships with the consulate's office?
Yes.
Very good.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, and so this is a distinction in our framework that we actually put in place. The design committee came together and we decided that in moving towards a site-based model, we needed to have some strong collaboration in family resource that had a strong site support and site structure, and one that allowed us to monitor data in a way where we could see the impact of these dollars as well as the impact of this support on student learning. And so as opposed to families going to a family resource center just to receive support, we now are identifying and locating students. So a parent comes, we know where their students attend school, and we are actually initiating referral processes for them, but also we're initiating intervention at the site level. And that's where our site-based staff person comes in. So as we assign family resource specialists to school sites, they coordinate with our student assistance programs, you guys have probably heard it called SAP, to engage in a referral process or a family intake where we understand the comprehensive needs of the family and we write a plan and goals to support them. How does FRC, our Family Resource Center, play a role, and what school site resources play a role in supporting the needs of the student? And then as we gather that baseline data, we work with the SAP program to communicate those goals at the school level and to work on an interval where we monitor the progress and the impact that providing service to families is potentially having on the growth of their students. And so it appears a bit small up here, but you guys have a copy in your PowerPoint. And so what we're proposing as a plan moving forward, we've had one phase of implementing family resource and support or engagement through the start of our Family Resource Center. But, excuse me, we do realize that we need to expand this support to assist all students and all families in our district. And our recommendation is to start the work in the North Cluster. And at the bottom of this page, what you'll see is a list of indicators that we use to determine the highest need school feeder clusters and where we could potentially start to build capacity for a district-wide cluster site-based model. And so we have the Family Resource Center. We propose or recommend to start it in the North Cluster and then to follow the continuum around to make sure that all the other schools have a site-based model for engaging families. Questions or feedback?
Yes, I have several. And first of all, Vice President Lee.
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Holmes. Appreciate your presentation. A couple questions. One, do we have any data on where the parents are coming from that are using the services now, like what cluster they're coming from, so to find out who's utilizing the services now. And then I don't dispute that North is definitely in desperate need of these kinds of services, and I can understand why you picked them first. But can you give me kind of a
to answer your second question with regard to how this is going to work, so we hire 2 additional ones, and then we're looking to merge some of our efforts with our Title I assigned family engagement folks in the district to be able to expand our work and capacity within the district. And so as it stands now, we'll have 1 person assigned to 2 schools, and they'll split the week to be at one school half the week and another school the other part of the week, but to provide a schedule for the community and the school site so parents know if they're not at their particular school where they could receive support in the event that it weren't on their campus.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Trustee Alavi.
I've been trying to think about this issue all weekend long, and I really believe that what we've got here is a situation of several different visions going on about what we perceive the parent resource model to be. To give Mr. Herrera some background, while we were going through the recession, Mrs. Locke Dawson and I met with parent groups and the ICUC, thank you, many, many times over a period of years in developing a concept for a parent resource center, because the parents that came to us wanted a place where they could go to be able to help their children get into college, and they didn't feel they knew enough and didn't have the information or the language skills in order to be able to help their kids get into college. And so it was envisioned as a kind of a place where it could really assist them in helping their kids. And I think that in January, when you first brought the review to us, and you indicated that you were going to do satellites, I think there was some board discussion about that, at least on my part there was. And I said, you know, that really wasn't the model that we were going for, because it looked like it was very socially oriented and not as much student and school oriented. At that time, I was not aware that the satellites had already been approved. I was talking as though the satellites still needed our approval. I didn't realize they had already been budgeted. So this summer, when I saw the newspaper article that said that we had a new Bobby Bonds site opening, I was flabbergasted. I thought it was still in the works. Otherwise, why was I going to Santa Ana, and why was I going to Moreno Valley? Why was I looking at all these different models if it had already been established? Well, come to find out that it had in January already been approved, and I guess we were just listening to a review. So now they come back again. We haven't even had a year to evaluate our satellite models, and they already want to add these site-based models, which I would have been okay with in the beginning, but I'm not necessarily sure that I want to take $220,000 out of our schools, out of our classrooms, out of our programs that we desperately need this money for, our VAPA, our STEM, and even a middle college program, for instance, to expand the Parent Resource Center at a time when we don't even know how these satellites have actually worked. The Bobby Bonds one has only, been in operation since August?
Well, actually, it's been in operation. It was temporarily located at Longfellow. And then once the school year ended, we moved into our...
I didn't know that either. But anyway, let's just say it hasn't been operating for a year. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. My thought is, I don't think we know enough now to make a judgment about expanding a program that we don't even know how it's even working. And then I have to tell you, I'm a little concerned. We have an election this November. We do not know if, I think it's Proposition 30, will be renewed. And there's an outcome for the next few years that there's going to be a state downturn. If we have to cut back on LCAP funds, what's the first thing we're going to cut back on? It's not going to be the classroom programs. This is going to be a parent resource thing. So we're expanding at a time when I think we ought to be evaluating it for success and see whether or not these satellites actually work as you propose that they do. And so I would suggest to the board that maybe we take a breather on this and we wait and see how these are operating. That's my feeling.
Thank you, Ms. Salovey, and thank you for your work on this. Clerk of the Board and Trustee Patricia Locke-Dawson.
Thank you, Mr. Hunt. Well, unfortunately, I feel responsible for dragging you into this. I went to see the Santa Ana place first, and I also was introduced by that group, ICUC, to the Santa Ana Partnership and all the work that they had been doing. And it was very much focused on college entrance and parent engagement and education. And they also took me to a group in San Bernardino. There was another sort of like effort going on in San Bernardino as well, so I met with them out there. So, and I'm going to echo what Mrs. Salovey said regarding the nexus or the genesis of this for me was the group that initially brought this idea was in response to a lack of adequate counseling. And they had studied this. Do you remember that? So the group studied what was harming our kids the most at the high school level, and that there wasn't enough counselors and the ratios were bad. And so, you know, I attended a hearing, sort of a testifying thing where they talked about this. And their solution to it was the Santa Ana program. So, and the idea of that was to have a drop-in center where the parents could come in and they'd have computers and they could be help with the FAFSA, so they could help the kids do the applications. So this is indeed a little different than that. And I think that was the sort of the discussion we had in, was it January when we talked about this? February. So, and we did bring up some of those things, and I still see we're kind of going down that same route. So I'm just, I think we do need to talk a little bit about what we want these resource centers to be, because I do think there seems to be a disconnect between maybe what a few board members think it should be, or a couple board members, and maybe what staff is experiencing in the field on the front lines and what you're getting. And perhaps it's a different animal entirely that we need and we need to have. But I do think I agree with Ms. Salovey. I'm not sure I'm keen on expanding it just yet.
Thank you, Ms. Locke-Dawson. Trustee Dr. Angelo Farouk.
Thank you, President Hunt. So, and thank you, Dr. Holmes, for providing this presentation. So I'm going to respond to this in kind of a two-part scenario. One specifically about the mission of the Family Resource Center and what its purpose is, and the second part about this expansion, this plan. So I'm going to respond to them separately. So regarding the mission, you know, I think this is fantastic that that Trustee Salovey and Trustee Locke-Dawson you know, looked into these other models and advocated for this Family Resource Center to be here. I think it's a very, very important asset. I do differ in the sense that I actually think that, from my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that, you know, and I can speak to this somewhat from a personal experience, absolutely the focus needs to be academic-centric, student-centric achievement. I mean, I think there's nobody is debating that aspect. In reference to the social programs that we're alluding to, where we're saying we're maybe deviating from the mission, my understanding is that we're not administering any social services. Referring people to legitimate government resources, I don't feel like that's something that's really a burden that's being placed on the mission of the organization. I believe that from a social perspective, these things in communities that are disadvantaged, the social components of a family's learning environment are directly linked to student achievement. So to me, they go hand in hand and they're directly related. I think that it's a very positive evolution that the Family Resource Center has been attentive to the needs of the types of parents that are coming to the center to start incorporating these things. So I'll speak to that on the mission part. On the expansion aspect, I just believe that, you know, in any situation, I just feel like we need to evaluate based on metrics and data. That's something that I don't feel is apparent from this specific presentation. It's not to say that it's not there. My question, a couple of things would be, one is, what has been the current scope of engagement to parents, not just that are currently going to the Family Resource Center, but broadly on what they're seeking in this kind of an institution? I don't know if you want to respond to that before I ask the next question.
So as you could see on the one slide, 60% of our families have come to us seeking to learn about school systems.
Right, but my question is not the people that are currently using it, like if there's a way that we can get a broader survey of feedback, and if it hasn't been done, I'm not saying it's a problem. I just mean that might be something we want to, whether it's through PTA or DLAC or some of other.
Right, and so one of the reasons why we, and I think this comment came from Trustee Locke Dawson, is we've needed to structure the Family Resource Center in a way that will allow us to have data points that we can make correlations between services being provided and the impact on learning. As it stands currently, we haven't had a good system of monitoring data, but what we propose here will actually allow us to do that. And so one of the challenges is, without the additional support of staffing, it's going to be a very difficult undertaking for us to do that, given what we have now. And so that's
one suggestion I would have, and this isn't something that you're meant to have an answer right now, I'm just putting it out there, is I think we need to come up with a mechanism to really get deeper into what the parents are actually seeking, and how that this model that you're proposing they would be receptive to that. Okay. And I'm not saying that isn't the case. I just think having that, I think, might help give more clarity potentially to Trustee Alavi and Trustee Locke Dawson's points.
Okay.
Board Member Herrera, I just want you to know that the tradition is that the president doesn't speak until all the board members have spoken. And if you have nothing to add, and this is a tradition that actually goes back to ancient Roman times when the Senate was allowed to speak before the consul spoke. So the consul is going to speak now because I have 3 other senators about to come up. So I want to ask this. How do I, and it's kind of on what Dr. Farooq was talking about, how do I as a board member, other than the warm and fuzzies, quite frankly, because as Mrs. Alavi points out, if things get tight again, warm and fuzzy goes out the window quick. How do I judge or how do I understand advancement here, achievement? What is the metric you're using for achievement? How do I know this is being successful? No warm and fuzzies.
How do we monitor the effectiveness of the family engagement that we're?
That's why you have a doctorate. Go ahead. Well said.
That's what we're trying to get our hands around.
Okay.
And what we proposed.
Okay. All right. Then I'm going to let the rest of them match you. Here we go. So, Vice President Lee.
I don't know if this is the answer to your question, President Hunt, but maybe the hundreds of families that are attending those workshops. I think that slide, that 60-40, is a little bit misleading and doesn't tell the story as well as it could, because maybe 60% of the people that are coming in the door are utilizing the services for those things listed below. But 60% of the resources are not devoted to that. I mean, I would say that to provide, a walk-in with answer a question, and if it's a referral, that doesn't take that much time, so it's not taking up too much resources. So, again, I know you can collect data a million different ways, and it's probably impossible to find out what the true resources are being used to serve those 60%. But I would say they're significant.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Yes, and I think probably what you're getting at is, for example, parents attending Pele workshops. They go for 10 weeks, 2 hours a week. That's 20 hours a parent. So when you look at that in terms of hours for the 998 parents who've gone through those workshops, that's right. Thousands of hours.
So what I'm getting at is I think the mission, which is clearly stated here in terms of getting parents active in their students' education, that mission's being served. It might not be articulated on this slide as well, but I think that is true. And I think we can survey something and analyze something to death, but I think with just the people on the front lines providing some feedback about what's happening on a day-to-day basis is a pretty indicator of what's going to happen in the future. And the question I asked in the beginning was, who's using our resources? People from the adult school. Why? Because it's across the parking lot. So I think it's a good indication that if you put the resources at the school sites, the parents are going to utilize those resources. And I don't have to tell anybody in this room or on this staff that transportation is an issue for a lot of our underserved families, and they don't have the capability necessarily to get to some of our sites. The last thing I was going to mention, I was looking at my phone not to check my email, but I was trying to find an email. What was that group, Dr. Farouk, that we went to with Gustavo at Mi Familia Vota? Do you remember?
LULAC.
LULAC.
That was LULAC, yeah.
And they made a presentation of a site-based model that was a nonprofit and a curriculum that they had, similar to what we do with resources on a site-based level. And this is an organization that has been around a long, long time, and all their resources suggest, or all their data suggests that if it's not at the site, it's not going to be utilized. So I'm in favor of the site-based model. I like that we have a central location for people to get to and kind of distribute resources. I'm not sure about the satellites. I don't really know how that fits into it, and I don't know what the conversation will look like to talk about maybe pulling those back and what if that would be detrimental or not. But I think that the way to get our parents utilizing the resources in which I think was originally intended, you're going to have to put them where they can find them. And then my last question is the $220,000. I'm guessing that was already budgeted through LCAP, correct, to support the Family Resource Center. So it's not money that's being taken from anywhere else. All right, that's all.
In fact, before I go on to the next speaker, will be Mrs. Lockdawson. Dr. Hanson would just explain that Dr. Holmes did mention this is in the 16-17. So the board has approved this money, yet there's a big asterisk next to it.
Correct, President Hunt. If you'll recall, the LCAP was presented to the board a couple different times. The board took final action in June to budget for the plan. However, there are two items that the board said we'll put the money aside but don't necessarily move forward until we have a better plan. One was the $990,000, give or take a few dollars, for the VAPA plan, and then we came back and shared with this board what the rest of that plan would be spent, and you gave us the green light to go ahead and move forward. The other one was the $220,000 for the Family Resource Center. So it's been set aside. Money's not been spent to expand to the site-based model, but the board did take action on that back in June.
Thank you. Mrs. Lockdawson.
Thank you, Mr. Hunt. And Dr. Holmes, I'm just going to follow up on a couple of the questions that the other board members said, but I think one of the reasons why we're having so much trouble wrapping our brains around the metrics is because we haven't clearly stated what our outcomes are trying to be, and then again, that's linked back to our mission, right? So improve student learning and development. What is that? Is that a test score? Is that a college entrance rate? Is that there's many ways to define that.
Right, which is when we got to this slide here, and we talked about putting a system in place. When families come in, for example, to attend the workshops, instead of just having 1,000 graduates, now we're looking at where those students go to school and saying, based on their parents completing these academies, what impact did it have on students? Did they have better attendance as a result of it? Because those are the things that parents learn. Did their grades improve because parents learn how to support their kids at home? Are they communicating more effectively with the school site because they learn how to engage in parent conferences and to answer emails and to do all those kinds of things? They learn digital literacy. And so before now, we haven't had this in place. And so this is one of the reasons why we've approached this model, and to do it on a small scale in a cluster so that we can monitor the impact and the progress prior to scaling it even further.
So how many parents did you say, or how many, you said you had 4,000?
4,317.
Okay, so that's a pretty big N, right? I mean, I think you can get some pretty decent data out of that cohort, right? So I guess I'm still confused. Are we looking at expanding into I think you can do that without expanding into the clusters, is my point. I think you can, if you're getting that many contacts, if you're getting 4,000 people coming through, you can start collecting those types of data for those metrics. That's a pretty large group on which to base and evaluate effectiveness, right? So I guess I would say, I think back to Mrs. Alvey's point is, how do we know how they're doing in the first place before we go to this larger cluster model? And I think you have a fairly good pilot program in place in which to conduct a study and develop your metrics. I mean, I don't know.
So the numbers that I'm presenting are from the inception to now. And so the...
Well, per annum, then what are you getting? How many you got?
Since February of 2014 until now.
It's 4,000. So I'm just saying annually then would maybe be half that or a third of that. That's still a fairly large, right? So I'm not going to design your study up here from the dais. I just am thinking you have a fairly good reason to, or a pretty good, a nascent cluster, I guess, if you will, to provide you with your data to get your metrics in. I think it really needs to, the mission statement needs to be refined related to those things. And then also I had another question for you regarding the where we want to be framework. And I guess going back to Dr. Farouk's comment, to me it's not so much about the social services, but this looks different than the model that I was saying earlier about the college. So the social services doesn't, not as concerning to me, but identifying, locating student, what is that? And is that you're going out and finding students at risk?
So like now parents come in and they receive the training, but we haven't been evaluating who are your kids, where do they go to school, and as a result of you being provided this support, what impact is it having on your kid?
So we're not collecting.
We hadn't done that.
Okay. So that's just a simple thing of like when the parent comes in, identifying that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the referral services, I get that. And then the initiate intervention. What's that about? I mean, obviously I know, but how does it mean in this context? What do you mean in this context?
So a parent comes in for a workshop. I can't get my kid to go to school. We're providing workshops on attendance and all of those kinds of things. But through the SAP process, they do an intake, understand all the dynamics of the family. What are the needs? That's where the Family Resource Center comes in to help link them with community agencies to provide that support. And then there's a process of writing goals and a plan for the family, the roles of the parents, the student, the school community, and the Family Resource Center. And then we monitor those. We monitor that plan and those goals at whatever intervals we set to determine this is how we have helped the parents link to some services. Did it increase their students' attendance? Did it increase their grades? Those are things that we're now implementing in this plan.
Okay, so that is fundamentally different than the model that we saw at Santa Ana. So I think the question to the board is that what you want, or do you want the other model, or do you want both? And if you do want both, then in terms of the types of services they offered. The one in Santa Ana was really, really focused on parent support for college going, okay?
And so our families, so much of the families that we serve now have needs even at the elementary level. A large majority of our families are elementary, they have elementary age children. And so there is support for that through the RUSD-led workshops. We provide like FAFSA nights and college application nights, and parents attend those. But we also have a constituency of parents who seek support for their younger age students as well.
So would you say that's the majority of your customers, or probably ones with elementary students?
Gabby, I would say. It varies. Yeah, primarily it's the younger ones.
And the reason I'm asking and the reason I'm posing the question here to the board is because this almost is a little deja vu. It seems like a little bit of the same discussion we had back in February. So I think there is just one question that needs to be answered is, what do you want it to be? Do you want it to be something that focuses on what Mrs. Alvey and I saw in Santa Ana, or is it something where you want the whole child with the elementary students and that sort of thing? Okay, and then one last thing. I'm just going to ask, whatever studies you do, please do them longitudinally across time and not give me cohorts from the same different years, because it's apples and oranges. Thank you very much.
You got it.
Mr. Lee wanted to respond to something you said.
I just had a question, because I'm not familiar with the Santa Ana model, but it sounds like you two are, and I'm assuming staff is.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just curious if staff was aware of that direction, why they chose not to follow the Santa Ana model.
Well,
the Santa Ana model is a site-based model, and they chose to go into these satellites.
Well, the satellite is not a model. The satellites were put in place to give families access who wouldn't otherwise have access to resources if we didn't have them there. And so that's Costa Blanca and Eastside. They don't have schools over there to go to a site base.
The
and
transportation.
So they exist now, but they may not need to exist as we expand. We don't know that yet. So that's not exactly a model. What we observed in Santa Ana was site-based family resource, but as I said, from our perspective, it was very disfragmented. There was not a structure to it, and the quality of engagement throughout the district, it varied depending on who the principal was, who the staff person was, and there was no real structure to it. Now, we did visit a career center at one of the high schools that had a strong emphasis on helping parents to understand college and career readiness, but that was separate from what we observed at the sites.
Thank you, Dr. Holmes. Trustee Alvey has a question for you.
Thank you. To your point about that, it all comes down to the people. And in the Santa Ana model, it was site-based. And so it may be that some of the sites didn't have as strong of workers as other sites. I don't know. But it still was accessible to any parent who had a student at that school. They could walk right in and walk right into that parent resource center. I think I mentioned to you in February, I was not a real fan of these satellites, and not because there's not need. I hope I'm not coming across as saying I don't want people to get social services. I certainly do, and I hope that there are a lot of ways that they could get these social services, but rather because I think that our strength as a school district is in providing that information to our students that gets them college and career ready. I wanted to go also back to this little schematic here. When you say that 60% of the parents are engaged in the Parent Education Summit, that's a one-day summit, isn't it?
No, not 60%. So the exact number of parents who have engaged in the actual summit is around 1,100. So
that's what I mean. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm a little confused about this okay. Picture anyway. So 60% of your time is engaged in putting on the summit?
No, 60% of that time includes the parent engagement, the parent education summits, the parent workshops, and the parent academies. And so to be more specific, the parent academies, we've had about 1,390 parents go through the academies. That's the PK, the PELI, those. And then we had a little over 1,100 parents attend the summits. We had 430 something the year before. In this past year, we had 700 right. or 680.
Right. It's a little hard to, when you throw in a metric like a one-day summit, kind of skews your numbers just a little bit about the number of people who are accessing. But I'm very concerned that we don't already follow our students for those parents who are already coming through. How do we even know that they're getting any good information, or how are we doing any follow-up if they needed more information? So if we don't know the students connected to the parent, how does that not work? You were saying that one of the things the $220,000 is going to do is do this model where we're going to reach out and follow the student. Mm-hmm. I'm surprised we don't do that already. That seems like something we would do automatically. I still go back to the fact that what we have in place hasn't yet even been tried for a year, and what you're proposing is an awful lot of money for expansion on a program we don't even know if it works, or we don't even know how it works. I'm not saying that there isn't need. I'm saying that I don't think that this is a well thought out plan, and I'd kind of like us to do a little bit more investigation onto how to make it work better.
Well, we don't, everyone's comments, I assure you, are heard by the president and the superintendent, who will meet tomorrow and see if we, how we need to do this. But I have a few more questions, 3 more board members for you. Okay. So Dr. Farouk.
Thank you, President Hunt. Dr. Holmes, I know this is a complicated issue. There's a lot of forces, so thank you for working through this. I know it's tough. My comment is really, to answer Trustee Dawson's questions about what do we want, this to be. This goes back to my other comment. It all depends on what the parents want. I mean, ultimately, this is a family resource center. We need to have a better pulse what the families want. So how we can have a better voice and a pulse on what they're seeking. ICUC was mentioned, and how they can be, sorry.
And I forgot to mention that earlier. ICUC and parents helped to create this plan. They were a part of the design team.
Okay. So what I would just mention is that, how, and I'm willing to personally volunteer my time towards this, but I think we just need to get a better cross-section of family, parent input, that not just people that are currently using it, but broadly than that. I'm happy to help facilitate some of those community conversations and participate in them.
Okay.
But beyond that, also, the data and the metrics. I mean, I think that there are more efforts that we can be doing, and again, I think the family should help kind of inform that. But some of those things, like you mentioned, like the students, with that information, I think we can have a much better understanding. But I firmly, unequivocally, am very supportive of the concept of what our approach towards this is, both on being a clearinghouse of resources as well as the academic achievement aspects.
Dr. Holmes, Patricia Dawson, Trustee Dawson.
So my final comments will be regarding action items or things that I think we need resolved. One, and you said a key thing. You said you went to a career center, college and career center.
Yes.
Okay. To me, that's fundamentally different than this family resource center. So I would ask the board, what do we want, or do we want both? Okay. The other thing was, do we want a satellite? Do we want a site-based model? And then the other thing is, I think I think you heard pretty unanimous up here that we need more data to determine the efficacy of our existing program. And it seems to me, based on what you've given here, that you have enough subjects, you have enough folks participating in the program that can give you a pretty good idea of your efficacy. And I would love to see that come back to us before we make a decision. Okay. And then I would like to perhaps have some pros and cons of the various things that I just said, and we can discuss as a board on that. Okay. So thank you.
Back to me, Dr. Holmes. One thing I want a sign. I've been asking for a sign since Dr. Lewis was around. Mr. St. Martin, I'm hoping that you can get us a sign out there so parents will at least know and have it bilingual. All I know is what you've presented. I'm a little concerned about I know the accessibility in Santa Ana, the site-based, but it really bothers me when I hear about the continuity, the gap in continuity and conformity. Dr. Hanson and I have talked about this my entire year here, that we have high schools that, like at North, they do that wonderful Senior Presents, and it's hailed as such a great program, and it really is, and I think it's super, and kids get an unusually transformative and adult-oriented experience out of it. My question has always been, why the heck don't we do it the rest of our schools? So I don't want any more nonconformity, and we do it differently at Harrison than we do it at Jefferson. So I'm going to be very interested in that. Board Member Herrera, you heard Mrs. Sinclair come up a little earlier and praise us as a very active board and all that. If you and I were to go over to our friends at San Bernardino Unified, I went there a few months back to watch their board meeting. They had a $25 million power purchase agreement on their agenda for solar and for this company. $25 million, 20-year agreement. They asked 2 questions. One of them was it going to be carports or roofs? And that was it. And then you have this board up here 9 times asking everything of Dr. Holmes there. It's not because they don't agree with her good work and the work that she and Mr. Alonso have put in. It's just that we care very much about how we engage our community and particularly our parents. And you know I'm saying that to you, but I'm really also saying that to Dr. Holmes and her staff to know that we do care about them and we know they're doing good work, but we do need to understand it just a little bit better. And I'm sure when you come back next time, Dr. Hanson and I will talk about this tomorrow. Maybe we need to throw the committee word on you, but maybe I'll appoint a couple people to work with you and just get some of it. But thank you for your, okay. Mr. Alonso, did you want to add anything? Charter Director? You don't have to. Oh, okay. I will give the parents a few minutes if they'd like to say something. That's fine. Oh, they need to fill out a card. I'm sorry, you're right. You need to fill out a card. Would you fill out a card after I let you say something? Would you promise to do that? Okay, quick. Okay, because otherwise I'm going to get puried by properly by my peers here.
Thank you for letting me speak.
Please state your name for the record.
My name is Edgar Broer, and I was listening to Ms. Kathy Alavi and Mr. Patricia Lack-Donson in regards to the meetings we had with ICUC about 3 years ago and the plan that we originally thought of. And throughout these few years that the Parent Center has been opened, I have been going to the different workshops that they have. So, and we see a need for this plan that we created together to expand. I know that there's many parents, like, they're not well engaged at their school. And that's actually one of the things that actually I've been asking also at the DLAC meetings. How can we get more parents involved at their school sites? So this is one of the ways that we can do that. There's many parents that don't have, email, or many of the messages that we receive from the district, they are through email. There's no more flyers that there used to be before.
Right.
So that's only one of the ways that we can use the model that we're talking about now.
I appreciate your sentiments. Thank you.
Yeah, and so as Mr. Brent Lee was also saying, we would have better access if we would have this at the school sites. And how are all these services helping the parents? Mm-hmm. If the parent doesn't have the services that they are being provided, the family is not doing well. How is the kid going to be able to learn in school? The kid has to be emotionally ready in order for him to be ready to learn. So that's one of the ways that I see that the Parent Center is helping us also.
I don't think you get an argument from anybody up here. We just want to understand the form of it right now. But go ahead, sir. I'm sorry I interrupted you. Do you have another comment?
No.
Okay.
So I don't know if do you have any questions?
No, we're not allowed to ask questions. I just kind of went too far there. Don't tell Mr. Brown if you run into him. But I thank you for your comments. Be sure to go see Ms. Anderson back there and fill out a card, will you?
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Adriana Carell, Community Resources and Engagement Plan.
Thank you, Mr. President, and the board, and Mr. Superintendent, Dr. Hanson, and our new student member. So as always, when I approach any of you, I like to wear two different hats. I will come to you with one hat as a parent in the community with my ears open, but then I also come to you as a member of this actual board that reviewed this plan and was part of planning this. So first I'll just talk to you as a parent. In the community, I'm very involved in PTA, as most of you know. I serve on the Riverside Council PTA as their secretary. And a lot of these concerns we do hear. Maybe you don't hear them, but we do hear them. I'm sure Edgar, of course, he hears them when he's dealing with ELAC and DLAC parents. But as a parent, I think what we are hearing in PTA, the parents are really wanting from this Family Resource Center, does have both sides. It does have the social services side, that there is a definite need, but it also has resources for, higher education, like Ms. Patricia Lack-Dawson had spoke of. As a parent, I know that I'm a recent high school parent. My daughter just graduated from Riverside Poly, so as a parent of a high school student, I am very interested in these types of college and career fairs and things that will help my student specifically. But in PTA, we have a saying where the A means for all children. We say PTOs are for our children, but PTAs are for all children. And we do think of the kids that are not ours. So even though I do not have children that are in the elementary school system right now, I do have a heart for these kids. And I think to address a couple of the issues that was brought up, Mr. Lee's comment that there is no coincidence the adult school parents are utilizing the facility the most, it makes perfect sense. And to me, that is a justification for wanting to have some sort of parent engagement resource available at the school sites. Secondly, if it does not exist, it cannot be utilized. And that was Mr. Lee's words. As far as the data that needs to be collected, I know that is a need. And as a parent, that's something that I want. I want to see structure coming out of this plan. I want to see streamlining and structure, and I want to see that data that supports the justification for these programs. I want to know as a parent that it's working. As a member of the committee, I also want to see that data as well. So I agree with both of you. But I feel that there is a definite way that we can structure this, and by having these resource centers at every school site, I think that will start bringing that structure. You have to have the different key players in the different places to begin that networking and that communication and that streamlining of that data. It'll help not only disseminate the information, but it will also help to collect the data that we need. But we have to have someone who's not already impacted because they're a counselor already, they're a teacher already, they're a principal or an assistant principal already at the school site, and their task list is already so high that they can't take on another job. So having an additional person at the school site at least, I think will help to streamline, and you will be able to have that structure that everyone wants. And lastly, just to address the satellite issue, it was to my understanding that the satellites were temporary, that they were sort of like when you have an imminent need, we don't want to wait until it expands before we start servicing these parents in the other community. Why make them wait when we can set up like a First Aid Red Cross type, temporary location that they can begin to receive the benefits of this right now, and then those can be replaced by the rollout of something at all the school sites, because you won't need those anymore. But those, to my understanding, they were temporary. I hope that clarifies. So thank you very much for letting me speak.
Thank you very much. All right. With that, then, I want to assure the audience, by the way, I know that clock's not moving. It was right once today, and will be right later on when they fix it. But the chair is aware that it is 7:53. So we'll move to the action item. And this has to do, of course, with our annual budget, which is unaudited financials, establishing appropriations due to the reconciliation and estimating ending balances. This has to, and Ms. Kadish will present it, our Chief Business Officer in Government Relations. According to California Code 42-100, requires districts to annually prepare, certify, and submit unaudited financial statements for the prior fiscal year. CBO Kadish.
Good evening, President Hunt, members of the board, Dr. Hansen. This report is an end-of-the-year financial report, Lily. They call it unaudited actuals because it is really the actual numbers, but they have not been certified by our auditor as final until they do the audit, which will happen in the fall, and then you'll get an audit report in January to testify that these numbers don't have any adjustments. If they do have adjustments, there'll be justification to what the adjustments means. So if you remember, as we built the budget, we had put a plan to have a better, more closer look on the actuals or the estimated at the time, so we can estimate the fund balance more accurately and include that in our budget process. And so this confirms that when we were building the budget, we had anticipated that we're going to end the year with about $115 million fund balance. This is slightly over to 116 and change, and that's because there was some more left over than we anticipated that will be later budgeted in the carryovers back to the departments and the sites that carried it. But I think the staff had done a pretty good job on monitoring and predicting the actuals to come up with the fact that it was within a few thousands, in my opinion. So kudos to the staff and thanks to the business department. to actually do that was a lot of work for them, but it was well worth it because it confirms that all of that was already in the plan for the budget. So I'm going to go just slide by slide real quickly, and you can stop me at any one of them for any of the questions. So this is our revenue. We had estimated actuals projected to have $453.9 million, and we ended up with 454.6, and that's due to some of the local revenues that we had tried to get good projections for interest and some of the leases and use of facilities, and it was a little bit more than what we thought. And this is just a pie chart of where our revenue majority is local control funding formula sources. The estimated expenditures, we estimated to have $428.4 million, and we actually had $428.2. And this is the expenditures in a pie chart. Just to stop here real quickly, a lot of what we're doing in this year and next year, this year that we ended and this budget year that we're living in now as our year, we are at 78.2% of total staffing. So that's our classified, our certificated administrators, and all of their costs. And that's slightly lower than before. And the reason is that we're spending a lot of one-time money, not necessarily in staffing. So we are mindful of adding expenditures. If we are going to spend the fund balance down, we're adding one-time expenditures, and usually we don't put that into staffing. So that's why that percentage is lower. And again, once we get to a year where we're balanced, you'll see that number higher compared to the rest of the expenditures.
Don't we usually see that number?
At 85%.
Yeah, 80, 90.
In a normal budgets in a district like ours, you will see an 85 to 90% of staffing, but we are spending a lot of one-time money right now.
Mr. Lee.
That was going to be my question. It's fine.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
So this is just to let you know that we had projected, we had a beginning balance of about $90 million from the previous year. With the income and expenditures that we had, we ended the year with $116.4 million. So that's already, in a way, if you remember our budget process, it's already in the plan to be spent over the next 2 years to bring our fund balance down to a reasonable 12 to 17% that we've talked about before. So it keeps us on the same plan. I want to go through the actual components real quick. And again, if you want me to go quicker, let me know. If you want me to slow down and go slower, let me know. So this is the non-spendable, very familiar to you, cash revolving, stores, the prepaid expenses. The restricted side, which is things that we can't spend on just anything. They just have to go back to the same programs. Educator effectiveness will be spent on staff development. The lottery restricted will be spent on instructional materials. So all of these areas are restricted for the categories that they're in. The local grants will go back to the departments that they belong to or the sites that they belong to.
How do you define the money from, is this what we're getting from the disillusionment and redevelopment?
This is what we have as a balance that's restricted in redevelopment. So we will be using those dollars as we bring you plans for projects of what we're going to spend that to supplement some of the projects.
So what is our latest, since I didn't approve of who represents us at the county and with the city, but that's who we have, what is our latest on the redevelopment dollars that is due to us as they begin to
So
move
that
their
has
property?
been already established into a pass-through that will continue to come to us, which is in the range of $1.9 to $2 million of a pass-through every year. So it kind of grows every year.
How long will that-
And we spend, again, we haven't been spending it on projects, so we have in the plan, as we are looking towards our facilities master plan and all of the funding sources, we will be building it in some of those projects.
And you are reviewing what we get from that task force. I forgot what they call it.
The successor agency?
What is it?
The successor agency.
Yes.
Yes.
Are you reviewing that?
That's all of their documents that it's already been final. So it's been submitted to the state, and we are on the list of their pass-through as they had planned. So
They
there's
haven't-
nothing new right now that's happening at the successor agency.
So we're getting a percentage, it isn't tied to they haven't sold some of the property. A lot of the properties they haven't. They've sold 2 properties so far. So
They
are we, Are we
They
getting
passed most of their properties back to the city, really back then, when they established a successor agency. Or they have committed them towards the debt that they've had as a redevelopment agency.
Okay. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. The committed dollars, this is, again, we always anticipate the reserve requirement coming in, and we don't know when that will happen. So Riverside has established this a few years ago that you're going to commit your dollars to the purpose that you need. We had committed the $15 million towards negotiation. That will be spent this year, in the budget year. We had committed, for example, the comparability study. We had finished that study, and that will be spent over the next 2 years. So all of these dollars, again, they're committed except for the reserve for deficit spending is really what we want to reduce the fund balance by, and we have budgeted for that. So we're deficit spending on purpose for the most part, and there is the fund balance to offset that for us in the next few years. But we do need to get to a balanced budget at one point and start living within that once we reach the acceptable level of reserve. Assigned, and those, again, they're by category, they have to be assigned in these areas: instructional materials, unclaimed property, for example, which is our checks that we've written. They haven't been cashed yet, and so we have to, by law, keep them on our records. Equipment replacement, that's where we replace our trucks. And
We have a question for you, Ms. Kadish, from
Yes.
Mrs. Alavi.
Thank you. So what is your philosophy about our trying to pass a budget that's not balanced?
So in a 3-year, multi-year projection, I was listening to the feedback about what is your comfort level of a reserve, and that was somewhere in the 12 to 17. We really haven't actually decided on it, but we, as we build the budget, try to keep a fund balance at the end of the 3rd year that you would live comfortably with. That is not a minimum fund balance, that is higher than that in a reasonable percentage. So in the multi-year projections, that would be about $34 to $40 million. So our $116 million will be reduced over the next 3 years, mostly with one-time funds, which is, if you remember, deferred maintenance plans, staff development that we've created, whether they're days or they're not permanent, things that we've done, and we can continue to spend those one-time dollars on one-time things.
So what you're saying is in 3 years, we'll have a balanced budget?
In 3 years, we'll have an acceptable reserve fund balance. As we move next year, we will be looking at that 3rd year again, and we will be making recommendation to how we want to move towards a balanced budget. By then, we'll know more about the revenue from the state that are ongoing. We're being very conservative right now that we are not necessarily budgeting for growth, but I don't think that Riverside will continue to be in decline. I think we're going to see some sign of growth, and that will bring more revenue. And so there is also, by nature of the revenue and the growth in Riverside, that we could be in a balanced budget. So we're waiting to hear more concrete information about state budget, more trends that kind of confirms that we no longer no longer need to be projecting decline. And at that point, we will give you more accurate figures for revenues and therefore balance the expenditures accordingly.
So I can assure the community that we're working on it.
Yes, and your comments about the fact that there will be a downturn in the economy is so true, and there is already signs of it. I had mentioned to extended cabinet and cabinet that the July revenues have been $800 million less than what was projected for the state of California. So that's not, they're monitoring very closely right now, and we will get some information in January that's more concrete, but it's already looking like they're not getting what they projected. But that's state numbers and finance of Department of Finance. So the legislative office has to kind of weigh in on that and see if they're really being just too pessimistic, or is it real.
And do you have any poll figures on the Prop 30 redo?
The Prop 55 is the one that's
it.
replacing
Thank
it.
you.
And I think the average voter will always go for schools. And so I feel like if it went on the ballot, it's going to pass. I'm very optimistic that way. But the state has not necessarily taken all of that in consideration. They have been kind of preparing us for that too. So our budget doesn't have the Prop 30 numbers. It has like it would to end.
Got it. Thank you.
If I can just interject, though.
Yes, please.
So Ron Bennett, though, he did say that they're polling well, as they've done the polls, the Prop 30 as well as the state bond. So we'll find out for sure, of course, at the ballot, but they are polling well throughout the state.
But I think we can be sure there's the other groups out there, the medical groups for one, the dentists are going to be working against it because they haven't been paid. So Dr. Farouk has a question for you.
Thank you, Mace, and thank you, President Hunt. My question is my understanding was that we were doing this in a very intentional manner, that it's not that we're not balancing this year's budget particularly, but that we're looking at this from a multi-year perspective.
Correct.
And that our current reserves were far exceeding any industry standards. And that's the reason we were doing some short-term deficit spending just to make our reserves more comparable to what industry standards are. Is that the
You're
case?
absolutely right.
Okay.
We have done intentional deficit spending. For example, I know Dr. Henson and we all are so proud of our professional development days that we are offering. Those are not permanent in the budget, so we will have to weigh in. If there's extra revenue that would come that we can offset, then great, we can keep those permanent, but if not, we will actually have to make a decision, do they go down to one? So
Right.
those are the decisions we'll be making. But
Right.
right now, yeah.
Right, but the key is that from a mission standpoint, for us to have, I mean, do you remember what the percentage was of the reserves at the peak?
So if you look at our revenue of $400 million and we have 116, that's over, like closer to 30%, 25 to 30%, and that is compared to a minimum reserve requirement for a district our size is 2%.
Right.
So we have the minimum required is 2%, which we don't recommend because it doesn't make more than 2 weeks worth of payroll if something were to happen, and to 30%. So we want somewhere in between, and so does the whole state, and so does it CSBA, and so we are looking to bring it down to somewhere. We don't know what is really the best place. Is it 12%? I would say 12% if you're fully balanced and you don't think you're going to deficit spend. But 17% if you think there is going to be expenditures that are unforeseen. So it'll be a balance as we come and build every budget for every year. We'll have to look at 3 years.
Right, but the bottom line is I just want to emphasize we are being very fiscally responsible with respect to the industry standards and our reserves. This is purely a means of that we don't want to hoard resources that otherwise could be used in the classroom and could be helping develop our staff and everything.
That's really why we're doing it.
Thank you, Ms. Kadish. Thank you, Dr. Farouk. Mrs. Lock-Dawson.
Thank you, Mrs. Kakish. Just two questions. I haven't been staying on top of what's going on with the reserve cap, so can you give us a little bit of background on the negotiation or where we are with that? And then also you mentioned that you have not banked on having a sustainable funding source for the professional development days. Can you just give me an example of a few other categories where you're not that are expendable, I guess, that we can take off the books if we need to, how you're thinking in advance that way? Thank you.
So we have, for example, deferred maintenance program, we had committed about $5 million. Those are ongoing projects that are one time, and every year you can say, okay, this is a good year, we've allocated it, we can go ahead and commit those projects. But if in a year where we get a surprise from the state or we get a decline or whatever the case might be, we can say, hold off, don't spend those projects even though it's allocated. Those are not restricted. It's money that you have spent out of the LCAP, really, and committed to those. So that would be one example. We've also have several contracts that we engaged on purpose to take advantage of staff development. We've done a lot of different things, as you see. We have committed to services through principles that you see, coachings or all of that. All of those are on contract basis. Again, if the money is there and we can afford it, we continue, which is really what we're all about is the professional growth of our staff, whether at the principal level or it's certificated or classified. If we're in a world of hurt and the state again, goes in a downturn, we will have to probably scale it back and have a plan to how we will go about professional development. And we might, whatever method that you've had used before, and depending on your priority to stay away from the classroom, that's the process that we would take. So we've identified, I think Dr. Hansen has asked at the budget time, when he saw that we are reducing drastically the fund balance, do you have, show me the one-time expenditures that are there. And so staff developments were there. There's also staff, there's staff on temporary basis that we use. And they, every year they're being replaced with temporary contracts, which we really don't ever want to be in a layoff mode. But every year we have attrition. We can absorb some of those staff developers into our classroom, back into the teaching, or back into a program, a different program, as we build different programs. So that will be evaluated every year. Every time you see a contract that can stop, every time you see a project that can stop, or any temporary staffing that we have in our budget. And so we have about $12 million on an annual basis currently of things we can pull back. Okay, so the reserve cap is still kind of up in the air. It's still, as it stands in law, that it comes into effect if all of the three factors happen, which is the rainy, if they contribute to the rainy fund and all of that. So that hasn't happened yet, and so it's the law's still there, but the factors to make it active has not happened. There is a lot of discussion, specifically on CSBA, to try to come up with a negotiated deal. I think what's holding it off, and you probably have heard also, that not everybody's on the same page. Not everybody thinks 12% is the right percentage or 17% is the right percentage, and so you have all the associations divided on that. So the question right now is whether, I think at CSBA level, of whether they want to spend any more resources with regards to that. There was some deal that could have actually coupled the reserve requirement change with another deal that had to do with orientation for our staffing, for our new employees in the district, and that kind of died at the last minute. It was kind of moving forward to change both, and it died at the last minute. And it didn't come out of the Senate, I think, with the committee.
Thank you for asking that question, Ms. Lockdawson. Please proceed.
Okay, so we are at, this is what we're required to have in a $453 million budget. We're required to have $8.5 million in the reserve if we were to just meet the reserve requirement, which I don't want to remind you that LA Unified follows that and San Diego Unified follows that. Other funds, quickly, just to give you the fund balance in them. Just to bring to your attention that we've established the trust for Fund 67 piece for the retirees, and we had to reschedule the meeting where we actually make decisions on the investment policy, and we wanted to make sure that all of the team members, and I think 2 of them had some conflict, and so we'll be rescheduling and bringing you back some information on investment policy for the retiree funds. And that's the end of the unaudited actuals presentation.
So your resolution is, I can't seem to bring it up here, but it's to report 1.7 million, is that right?
The
in unaudited?
Unaudited actuals is the 453 for general fund, and then the 100 million of other funds. All of that is the whole report.
All right.
That's before
I had fiscal impact of 1.7 million, so on your report, but that's.
I'm not sure.
Right here.
Is it?
I'd move approval when the time is appropriate.
It's on the summary,
Mhm.
CBO, Kadesh. Do I have a second to the motion of Mrs. Lockdawson?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Just help me understand what that fiscal impact is.
It's actually the whole report, so
So why
you're
is there a
approving the report to go to the county and then to the state.
So why is there a
Why is it listed
$1.7
as
million
1.7?
fiscal impact on us? It's a very good typo otherwise.
Not sure.
While we're waiting for that, go ahead and, with the board members, please vote on the motion. Thank you. Mr. Eric, please, yeah, go ahead.
So it's the difference between unaudited actuals and actuals, but it's all funds. And I had just mentioned to you the general fund was from the 115 to the 116, but this is all the funds together. The difference was 1.7.
Okay, can I get that vote to come back up? I think I lost it. All right, just vote again, please. Ms. Alvey, thank you, Ms. Alvey. Okay, that carries unanimously. Thank you.
So I would like to stay up for
Yes.
the next item.
Your item H2, I believe.
So the next item is the GAN limit, which is a report that's generated based on our unaudited actuals and the budget. And so the GAN limit is really, it came into place in 1979. And because of a guy named Paul Gann that put it in place through legislation that no government agency should grow in expenditures more than the inflation factor and the population factor. And so that is a calculation that's done in our software that gives you the percentages and it gives you the amount and it tells you that you are within the limits. So this is a report that you're approving that tells us that Riverside Unified School District is staying within the GAN limit. And we're not spending more than what the inflation factor and population factor.
I have a motion to make Mr. Gann happy. All right. So moved, Mrs. Lock-Dawson.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Alvey. Please vote. All right. You can tell he and Mr. Jarvis were doing fine. All right. Next is we're going to take a 5-minute break before we go to the disciplinary items. If you recall, this was an item we tabled to this meeting because we wanted to have the opportunity for our group headed by Dr. Farouk to visit back and talk about restorative justice, making sure that has a... So we'll take, not by that clock, but we'll take a 5-minute break. Dr. McGuire, I think you're up to the plate. We're all back. Dr. McGuire, this is about board policies, and you have updates from the state, and you brought them forward to us to approve.
Based on the input that the direction from the board last 2 weeks ago, or however many weeks it was. Oh, sorry. Based on the direction of the board, some revisions were made to the 2 board policies this evening to make them broader and supportive of the direction of the board. I stand to answer any questions. The recommendation tonight is at the discretion of the board.
Just the one policy? I'm sorry.
There are 2 policies.
There are 2 policies under H3. Okay.
Yes, 51.44 discipline and 51.44.1.
Well, the chair has a question. As Dr. Farouk, have you had a time to review these with?
Yes, thank you, President Hunt. I appreciate the board tabling these items for today. Just to provide some context, so Dr. McGuire and I have been in conversations, and I've connected him with one of the stakeholders from the White House meeting, Public Counsel, and so we are looking at this as a best practice, as a potential model of what the most progressive districts in the country that are uniquely related to the needs of our district, and that's what's reflected in this revised second reading. So, and my understanding also is that we're looking at potential funding sources, whether it's from the state or from some of the foundations that we're in conversations with, about how we can have more ongoing support on these areas and work with organizations like Public Counsel to really, again, delve deep. These issues on restorative justice, they're not going to be done based on one policy here and there. This is something that's going to be fostered of a culture over many years. There's training efforts already being underway in specific school sites, and there's going to be rules also that are going to get more deeper, that are going to be administratively conducted. But because of the nature of these this topic that we're working on, even though those rules can be done administratively, we're going to be, as a board, wanting to keep an eye on those things just so that we can be supportive and advocating. So I would motion to approve. Can we do them at the same time, or we have to vote on them separately?
You can, the chair is willing to accept whatever you'd like to do, sir.
Sure. So thank you, President Hunt. I motion to approve discipline board policies number 5144 and 5144.1.
Second from Mr. Lee. Do we have any discussion? Any questions? Okay. All right. Hearing none, I'd like the board to please vote. And that is approved.
Thank
Discipline
you very
away with justice. With justice. All right. Restorative justice. That's right. Okay. Thank you, Dr. McGuire, and thank you, Mr. Walker, for your work. All right. We move now to board member comments, and I'm going to go in opposite direction. So I'm going to ask for Vice President Lee.
Thank you, President Hunt.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of things that I jotted down. One, maybe staff can get back to us later, or maybe they can comment now. In regards to Mr. Walker's comments about the district of choice being kind of held up in the legislature, is there anything that we can do to kind of be advocating? Because it's something that makes our district special and unique. So if there's something that we can do as a board, or I can do as an individual board member, let me know.
I certainly will, and we can discuss that deeper when I bring it back in October. We'll discuss a little bit about the effects it has on RUSD and the potential for extension, as well as our own desire to stay a district of choice, regardless of what happens.
And for our local legislator, what is his position?
He's in support of us remaining a district of choice.
Okay, good, thank you. Also, thank you, Mrs. Carmen Day and staff, for your efforts on the pilot project for Harmony. I think that shows we can act swiftly when we want to. So I'm excited about that. I think Beatty and Brian are a good place to start and see how it works. Third, I think she's gone, but Miss Sinclair, she was my 6th grade teacher, and And I could have said the same things that I said about Miss Allen during my teacher conversation about her too. She mentioned the play. I was in Peter Pan. I was the shyest kid, but she still gave me the chance to be in Peter Pan. I was Michael. So that was fun. I won't forget that. So she's an awesome teacher. And then the last thing I was going to say was in regards to the parents that came out for the Family Resource Center. I understand all the comments that when I respect them and value everybody's opinion and insight. And I just want to say that sometimes, and I think we can all agree, plans change. You know, we go in a direction in which we think we want to head, and then organically, as things progress, we find ways to fill needs in other areas. And I think with our district, and we look at the challenge that we have as a community, I mean, less than 40% of our population has a college degree. That needle has been hard to push over the years. We've saw data, even with all the work that we're doing to prepare our kids to be college and career ready, to push that needle, it takes a lot of effort. So sometimes I think we got to do the groundwork, those grassroots efforts, just to get the parents to learn how to sign into Aries. I can't remember who it was. I think I was talking to Steve Kong in your office, Renee, how he met a parent at a school site that wanted to participate in their middle schoolers' education, but the teacher kept saying log into Aries or log into Haiku, and this parent had no idea how to log in. They had an email, but they had no idea how to log into the system. So if we can't even provide those basic services, college is not even on the radar at that point. So I think if we start at those basic level of services on the sites and find the greatest need sites first, I think that's a good start. And I'd love to get to a point where we can kind of centralize services and be able to help our parents participate in getting their kids college and career ready in the high school level. You know, I see a lot of the issues in terms of, you know, the satellites and maybe the lack of data collecting, but I think from where I see it and all the information that I've gathered and heard, no matter what has happened up to this point, I think we've learned that the Family Resource Center is valuable. I don't think anybody will argue with that. But maybe just in its infant stages that we really need to focus on those core basic services and getting parents, teaching parents on how to be involved in their kids' life. So that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Lee, and appreciate your comments. Clerk of the Board, Ms. Trustee Locke Dawson.
Thank you, Mr. Hunt. I just wanted to say that with the start of school back, we heard Dr. Rowe talk a little bit about some of the pressure that our students are under, and you will get to enjoy this uniquely wonderful parental experience when Henry and Felix get into college or get into high school. But high school is a different game than it was even 5 years ago. It's very different. And I do think we just need to focus as a district on ensuring the well-being of our students, and that does not mean coddling them. That does not mean treating them like babies, or as some would suggest that it somehow is reducing the rigor or what we're asking them. That makes me very angry. I think supporting kids and not pushing them at every turn is the right way to treat our kids, and I don't think it's a way to get them to be successful. We've made a lot of we want to get our kids into college, we want them to succeed, but we have a very narrow definition of success. And one of the things I've heard lately is that we need to teach our kids grit and perseverance. That's a big buzzword now in education. They can get that from one experience on the ball field or in a particularly tough class, but they don't need to get it in every single class and in every activity they participate in, because that's what's going on right now. They're being pushed and things made to be hard, and I think we need to reevaluate exactly where they're getting that information. And I think a small start would be to have the AP teachers talking to each other and determining what homework they're giving their kids. Because, as you know, each AP class, if a kid's taking 4 AP classes, like mine, and the teacher gives 2 hours of homework a night, that's physically impossible. It just isn't, and it precludes doing anything else. So this is the type of stuff they're being pushed up against, and I just want to reiterate to the board that I think we need to be sensitive to it, and the mental health issues of our kids are at stake, and that's really the most important thing here. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dawson, for those comments. Mrs. Allaby, Trustee Allaby.
Thank you very
The
much.
Dean of the Board, by the way, the Dean of the Board.
First, I would just like to say another welcome to Mr. Herrera for his very first board meeting. I hope it wasn't too overwhelming, but it's very nice to have you along, and glad you're here. Secondly, I'd like to say that I was confused by the comments by Mrs. Curiel, who spoke of the satellite family resource centers as being temporary. I had not heard that term before. I haven't heard it from anybody else on staff, and I would like to have clarification of that. If they were indeed meant to be temporary, that changes a lot of what, and if indeed they were thinking of this as a transition, but that's not exactly what was presented to us tonight. What was presented to us tonight was to keep the satellites and add the site locations. And so I would feel a lot more confident in the system if we were moving towards a final site-based system, but that's just me. And then finally, I just would like to do a shout out to Paul Salyers, who is one of our great music teachers up at Miller Middle School and also at King, and he had a heart transplant. I just wanted to let people know that there is a GoFundMe site for Paul Salyers, and he's on the mend, of course, but you never know about these things, but it's a big deal. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Allaby. I appreciate it. Dr. Farouk.
Thank you, President Hunt. I just have 2 things I wanted to mention. One is I really want to commend Renee Hill. Just the initiative and leadership you've taken on the Girls Who Code efforts is just extraordinary. Thank you so much for all your efforts. The other thing I just want to mention is regarding the student board members, which Alex, congratulations. Really proud of you and Jerry and Nicole for taking this initiative. One thing I just want to inform everyone about this is that it's not just what they're going to be doing here at the board meetings themselves, but the most valuable insights I think that us as a board are very keen on is just the pulse of the students, and they're coming up with so many creative ideas. I'm blown away by the sense of seriousness and the enthusiasm they have to not just take this as something that's on their college application as a line, but where they can really make a difference. And so they have ideas on how they're going to engage students that are beyond the schools that they are coming from, and that to me is just really inspiring. And so I just wanted you guys to be aware that they're looking beyond just the impact that they can make here in these board meetings, and they're going to be patient and have perspective on what they can do in the meetings themselves as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Doc. And Board Member Herrera.
I'd just like to thank everyone again, the board and the people that came to the meeting for giving me their full support and for making me feel welcome and making me feel like an actual member of the board, and for treating me equally as and like respecting my vote as much. It means a lot, and I hope to continue to actively engage in, or I hope to, furthermore, I hope to engage more in the discussions, and hopefully I'll be more familiar with the code of conduct, or what are they called, the Roberts rules, or, yeah, and yeah, I'm just looking forward to these next couple of months, and thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Okay. We sort of go by Bob's guidelines here, not Robert's rules, so we do the best we can. But Alex, we are, and Nicole and Jerry, we are looking to the three of you, and why we want the voice of a student here. You are our client. You heard what Mrs. Locke Dawson just said, and that's something that tomorrow after the board meeting, the president and the superintendent get together and we go over everything that was said, and particularly what board members say, because it's the only place we're allowed to all kind of have a conversation. And I know that the majority of this board, if not all of us, share equally the concerns that Mrs. Locke Dawson has. She happens to have a daughter in high school right now, so she's a little closer to the buzzsaw than the rest of us are, and a little more sensitive to it. But it is a concern, and so particularly on items like that, we're going to want to hear from y'all. That's, you know, because no pressure, but you know, you represent 43,000 other students, and particularly you, our high schoolers. That's the finished product we're trying to put out to the market, and we want the UCLAs and the SCs and the UCRs and all of them, we want everyone to say, we're so glad we got a RUSD student has a student now at our college, because those are well-rounded, they're prepared, and they're not too beat up as also. I just wanted to share with you also that a couple things, board members. Remember, Thursday we have Good Morning Riverside, where Dr. Hansen will be the featured speaker on that bond measure, which we're not allowed to bring up in here in this room. But actually we tried, and some attorney called us, so we couldn't have it here tonight. But Dr. Hansen did try. But I think we'll, Justin has put together something very good with Dr. Hansen, and we'll look forward to it. And please, all of you be there. Tomorrow, Dr. Hansen and I will talk about, just going back to that for a moment, we will be talking about the satellites, and in particular your comments, all your varied comments, and about, as Mrs. Locke Dawson, the grit and the pressure. What is the district's mindset? I would have loved to have, I respect Michael Rowe. I would love to have Michael Rowe not worry about his job and just tell us what he really thinks. And I don't think he has to, not in this district. So what is, Dr. Hansen, if we can take a look at that systemically, what is the district mindset? Mrs. Locke Dawson can say those things. I can nod and approve. I can think of, as Kathy can too, think of the pressure that were on our daughters, but several years ago, you know, for Taylor even, it's been 7 years since high school. I know it's different now, and you, my friend, I've talked to you, and I know there's concerns. I know we have problems on campus, and our counselors talked to us about it. So finding out, I'd like to find out before the end of my term here and coming up is if we can, but rather have a thorough study than a quick one. What is our mindset as a district on this issue? We want them to achieve. How do we define success? Thank you, ma'am. That's why we're collaborative. Speaking of collaboration, this morning at the invitation of the RCC President, Dr. Isak, Vice President Lee, Dr. Hansen, Lynn Carmen Day, and I joined Dr. Isak, Chancellor Michael Burke, and RCC Board of Trustees President Virginia Blumenthal for breakfast to talk about upping our relationship, making it more active. We talked specifically, we did talk about Central Middle School and Middle College. We did talk about their new School of the Arts and how we can work closer together and of course it'll be up to this board, but to achieve what I think is one of the best things that could happen, and some of you that have paid college tuition can, and you use it will, being able to get middle college where you can get 1 to 2 years of college out of the way certainly makes a big difference for families, and will certainly, if we want to have a college-going atmosphere and lifestyle here in Riverside, that can make a great difference. They were very receptive. Virginia brought it up a couple times. This couldn't happen a few years back. Different personalities, but we have the right personalities in our elected leadership and certainly in our appointed leaderships at both campuses. And things that Mrs. Allevy and I got slapped down for bringing up are actually now things that a few years back are actually at the top of the list. So I'm going to do something in the next couple of weeks that I haven't done in a long time. It's called a vacation, and I'm looking forward to that. I remember one time years ago that, God bless her, and she proved right then to be a better trustee than I am. Mrs. Alavey called in during her vacation into a board. I think she was in Hawaii or something, weren't you? And bless her heart, I thought, wouldn't you rather be on the beach with a Mai Tai than talking about it? But she's so dedicated. I am not that dedicated. And it's 8 hours away, and Dr. Hansen said he refused to serve wine during the meeting, so it'll be the same with me. So I will not be here, but my learned and colleague here, Mr. Lee, will be chairing the next meeting, and we know he does a very fine job. I told him to do a good job at Professional Development Day. He made people cry. He did such a good job, and so we know he'll do very well. We're going to close tonight in adjournment for several people. And the first one on my list is our friend, and thank you, Dr. Hansen, and your staff for arranging the opportunity for us to go there in vans if we could, so we could all be back on time. Dr. Pamela Clute. Pam was an assistant vice chancellor emerita at UCR. She was a foundation trustee there. She passed away on Sunday, August 21st. She held 3 degrees from UCR and was a passionate teacher and pioneer of STEM education. She may not have planted the acorn that will become the STEM campus one day, but she certainly had a lot to do with nurturing it there at UCR. She was also co-founder and director of UCR's Alpha Center, which brought in $20 million in grants for college readiness programs, especially in STEM learning. And we sent a letter out to her husband, Steve. Francisco Contreras. Francisco Contreras passed away on August 19th, and he retired from the RUSD after 25 years of service. I apologize, I don't have a little more information on Mr. Contreras, but we appreciate his service, and we want to notify his family of our feelings. And Margie Melton. Margie passed away on August 16th. She worked many years as a health clerk for RUSD before she retired in 1990. And then very sadly, we're also going to close in memorial of Polly Senior Schuyler Kiefer, who the Friday before school started, passed away. And tragically, also Luis Quintera. Luis did not have enough units to graduate. He got in a little trouble when he was at Ramona. He was over at EOC. He was committed to his family, committed to them that he would get the grades, and he was going to graduate. He was close, I think January, he would have graduated. Apparently, Luis, with some friends, stumbled upon some crazy person with a gun, and apparently to Luis, from what his sister tells us, to his nature was someone who tried to be a problem solver, tried to be someone who calmed other people down, and for that, this person took his life, and that's very sad. So in their honor, and remember what we're to do here as a board, we close. Thank you.